All right. So, good morning, everyone, and thank you for coming this day. This is our last day together, which is fairly monumental after 3 years of lots of work. We're just going to start with the traditional opening chants. I'll start with the Shuklam Krishmacharya, and then you can join me for Sahana Vavatu, and then we'll just have closing chants later. So 3 ohms. And if you want to mute yourselves to begin. Om. 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 Shuklam Bharataram Vishnum Shashivanam Chaturpujam Prasanna-vadanant-yayet sarva-vignopashantaye. To our teachers, Guru Bhyastat Guru Bhyascha Namo Vakamati Mahe Freniya Mahe Chatadradhyao Dampati Jagatampati. To Krishnamacharya, Shri Krishna Vagisha Yatishvarabhyam Samprapta Chakrankana Bhashya Saram Shri Nud Narangandra Yatau Samapitasvam Shri Krishna Mayang Guruvayamide Virode Kartike Mase Shatatara Krutodayam Yogachayam Krishna Mayam Guruvayamaham Bhaje Shri Guru Pyo Namaha Hari Hi Om. Sahana Vavatu, I invite you to visualize yourself in either the radiance of the sun or the radiance of the moon, and then creating some sort of boundary for yourself around that light, be it a rainbow or be it a mirror, giving your energy field some protection. Sahana Vavatu, Sahanau Bunaktu, Sahaviryankaravavahai, Tejasvinavati tamastu, Mavid Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we be protected during this learning, teaching experience. May this experience generate joy and nourish us with that joy, energy, light, dispelling all darkness, all misunderstandings between us. And may the experience leave us with Shanti, peace in our thoughts, in our words, in our actions, in our bodies, in our speech, in our minds. And may this peace protect us from any dukkha, suffering, caused from our own actions, the actions of others, or any environmental factors. Namaste, namaskaram. Looking forward to these wonderful presentations. It's all yours, Jane.
You can just click on the little podium at the bottom right, Jane, if you want. Yeah, that one will do it. You're muted still, Jane.
No, I'm just trying to get rid of the tiles. That's all.
If you go
There
to
we go.
where it says play from start on the far left, it will take you into presenter view so we can see it well.
Okay.
Far left, just click
There we
right
go.
there and then you're good to roll.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. So thanks for coming. My case study is a labral hip tear. So the labral hip tear, there is a ring of cartilage between the top of the femur and the hip socket, and it provides cushioning for the hip and also keeps the socket in place. It's like a rubber gasket or a seal on a sealer jar. And sometimes people experience tears at the top of mostly at the top, it seems, of this labrum. So there's a picture, it gives you an idea of where it is, where it sits. It can be repaired, but it is not that common a surgery. Most of the time they will leave it and later may do actually a hip replacement. So the causes of a labral hip tear are, you can read them: traumatic injury, falling, hockey, skiing, could be structural problems. Some people are born with hip issues, and some people are actually born with extra pieces of bone in the hip, and that can cause an accelerated wear. And then repetitive motions like long distance running is very common for this one. So some people have no signs or symptoms, and other people experience many. So it's often a sharp pain in the hip or groin, crossing from the hip towards the abdomen, and it can also wrap around the back. And I'm speaking of the experience of the student. And it can affect either your internal or external rotation, depending on the tear and how your body is constructed. And also sitting can become quite painful because of the flexion and the slight external rotation. It can cause over time osteoarthritis because of the breakdown of the cartilage, and can lead to hip replacement eventually. So common treatments are physiotherapy, acupuncture, massage, and more of recently, they have been doing cortisol injections in the hip, which is in itself quite painful. But for some people, these cortisol injections are very effective and can last 3, 6 months, a year. In other cases, not effective at all. So it's a bit of a gamble if you're going to try that one. So my student, her name is Janet. She's a 58-year-old woman, retired, married, no kids. She worked in banking in the energy sector, pretty high level, very pitta in personality. She and her husband moved to Kimberley 3 years ago, when they both worked there online for a while. Then Janet retired, and then her husband Steve retired, and they moved there because they wanted to recreate. They love hiking, they love skiing, they love biking, they love playing golf. And this small town of Kimberley provides all that very, very, very accessible. There's no driving. Well, there is driving, but you don't have to drive an hour to the ski hill. So recently she's been working on connecting with the community. She has begun volunteering with the local hospice society and has been doing education on supporting family members at the end of life, and has recently supported 2 people and their families, and has found that very satisfying. She is an extrovert, large social circle. She's an excellent, thoughtful communicator, quite high energy, quite driven. She's fit and healthy. She enjoys the outdoors. skiing, hiking, traveling, golf. She and her husband, Steve, are very close. And they both love to recreate and travel. They have a lot of similar interests, which is wonderful, but has also caused some stress on her recently because her hip in the last year, this problem has been going on for probably 10 years. She thinks probably she fell skiing a few times on the hip and then used to do long distance running. So she thinks it's just kind of a combination of things and maybe her body structure as well. But it was just a pain in the hip and she would go for massage, she would go for physio. But then recently, I guess about 8 months ago, was diagnosed with this labral hip tear and was told, she may develop arthritis, she may need a hip replacement. And so she's having some stress and anxiety about what this might mean for her lifestyle and her relationship with her husband. As I said, they're very close. Her husband, Steve, very athletic, very, very drivey, pitta, like, let's go out, let's do stuff. So it's been a challenge for both of them because, they would just go for a ski or they would go for a hike or they would go and play golf. And that's just not as possible for Janet right now. Also, one of her challenges is slowing down and creating space and allowing herself to rest. So the bhavna for her practice was to create space, thinking about space in the hip, but also space in her mind and emotions, trying to find ways to move away from the pain. Because in the last, when I started seeing her in September, October, the pain had been increasing. Difficulty sleeping, couldn't sleep. Hurts the left hip, but couldn't sleep on the left side, couldn't sleep on her right side, which is normally how she slept, had to sleep on her back, which wasn't comfortable. So her sleep was compromised. And then for her, a big deal is giving herself permission to rest, that it's okay not to go for a 5-kilometer hike. It's okay to just walk around the neighborhood or to rest, to do yoga, to go to the pool and not swim, but just sit in the hot tub if that is what the body is calling for. So that is a challenge for her. And also because her relationship is very tied to activity, a challenge. So the practice goals, we started, I wanted to work with her with the idea of Neil Pearson's pain scale, and I'll flip that just a second. We also used the Wong-Baker pain scale, and I'll show you that in just a moment. And we said, giving herself permission not to work out, exercise, do yoga, do physio, go for a walk, that was going to be a practice for herself. And then we also thought about, in terms of the practice, on creating space in that hip joint, length, and then strengthening. Her glutes had become quite weak, particularly on the left side. So finding ways to strengthen the outer hip and glutes, to reduce pain and find ways that she might be able to sleep with greater ease. So I just wanted to talk quickly about pain. This was a lot of the practice. The yoga practice is not going to fix a tear in the labrum. But what was happening with Janet was pain was affecting her quality of life, her sleep, her relationships, her recreation, her sense of self. So I looked at the idea of pain and what that looks like. There's quite a bit of research on pain and yoga. And there's quite a bit of research that shows that yoga can reduce pain through the movement, through the breath, through meditation. So Neil Pearson's pain scale, I don't know, I'm sure you may all remember it, but it's just kind of checking in with yourself at the beginning of the practice, anytime you start a new shape. But can I breathe is the first question, or am I breathing? And when I make this movement or do this movement, do I feel safe? Yes or no? If it's no, then go back to, am I breathing and should I stop? And if I continue to move my body, if the answer is yes, I feel safe, how will I continue to feel safe and how will I feel tomorrow? So again, for Janet, that was an important thing because she does push herself through things. She's, the idea of no pain, no gain. I need to get strong. I need to get through this. So it was really, this rehab for her was kind of the antithesis of who she is and how she has approached life in the past. So this is the Wong-Baker Faces Pain Scale rating. We looked at the numbers, which is great, but you know, everybody's 3 means something different. Everybody's 6 and 7 means something different. So I found that the face was quite helpful, and I've used this with other students, particularly if I'm teaching in a community center, people whose, you know, I'll ask them, but English may not be their first language, but I can see on people's faces how they're feeling. So I could watch Janet when we were doing a Zoom call and see, oh, it hurts a little bit. Okay. Or, oh, it hurts even more, it hurts a little bit. And then get her to go back to that Neil Pearson pain scale. Can you breathe? Should you stop? How are you going to feel later? To get her to really connect with that idea of you don't have to push here. You can just take it slow and steady. And yeah, it seemed to work really well for us. This and the visuals I think are kind of fun. People can relate to this one quite easily. So the sutras that we worked with Janet, Sthira Sukham Asanam, she's great at the strength, but for her, the idea of finding some ease and releasing the tension in the body. And this translation comes from Understanding Yoga, written by Mr. Sridhar. And then 134, focusing on the breath, especially exhale, to work on the idea of reducing pain and getting out of the cycle of pain. So extending exhales. So we did, through the practice, we did a couple of pranayamas. The first one that we focused on was really fully breathing because of the pain, a lot of her breath was very shallow, collarbone, shoulders. So we just really worked on the beginning of practices. She would lie down and she would do an 8 or 10 breath count, just a few breaths, and then she would really focus on breathing into the full body, collarbone, chest, ribs, and belly rising, having a pause, and then really extending the exhale, starting low belly, ribs, chest, collarbone, releasing the air. And just watching her do that was quite a pleasure because you could see her body, her mind just calming down after she'd done a few of these. And then also doing some krama, which is a stepped inhale or exhale. Again, just really drawing the focus of the mind away from the experience of the pain. So you have to count the breath as you inhale for a 2 count, hold for a 2 count, inhale for a 2 count, hold for a count, and then full exhale or reverse. So it really draws the brain into what you're doing and not being in the experience of the pain. Oops. So in particular, Janet, her experience was her left hip, dull pain, but pain that really did impact her living. It could sometimes be sharp. This is also quite common. The top of the femur, the thigh bone, can slip out of that socket with the tear in the labrum. So you get bone on bone grinding, and also will throw off the hips, the gait, the whole body, because the hips become more uneven and unstable. It impedes her motion. And interestingly, I thought this was interesting. I'm still talking to her about this, but she found walking like in the neighborhood on a flat surface was difficult. But if she went for a hike and she was going up and down, and Tracy, you might have an answer to this. She did ask her physio, they didn't have an answer, but she's hiking and she's going up and down uneven surfaces. She didn't find it as painful. And I said, well, what about going like down a slope? Nope. What about going up a slope? Not a problem, but it's the flat surface, which I found quite interesting. But maybe then that hip slips forward and starts to grind more. I don't know. As I said earlier, sleep was a problem for her. We talked about body pillows underneath the backs of her thighs. And she's not sure how this happened. It just became worse and worse over time till it really began to really negatively impact her lifestyle. So her pranamaya kosha, her vitality, pain disturbing sleep, ruminations, the idea of a hip replacement, the pain in the hip, the pain in the groin, and also the deterioration of the glutes because of the pain and the way she was walking. Generally, a very positive outlook. And I put this in the references. I'm not going to take you to it, but there is an interesting hip hook that people that have hip pains, it's got a that she discovered that's helped, that kind of opens up the hip a little bit. So as I said, very pitta, very quick, intelligent, intuitive, lifelong learner, loves traveling, new experiences, and looking for new challenges as she does to retirement. So hospice is part of it. And then I just like this slide, so I put the butterfly in. And she's also looking to reconnect a bit with spirit. She grew up Catholic, was involved in her community Catholic church in Calgary, but didn't really feel that connection in Kimberley, so is looking for other spiritual outlets. Very much nature is part of that. She has a very strong marriage, but as I said, there is that strain of, because they can't do things right now to the same degree that they could. She feels she needs to, which she was successful. She got Steve involved in a ski group over the winter, so there was less pressure on her to ski with him. He would go out on Wednesdays and ski with his buddies, so that was helpful for her. Also gave her some time if she needed to just rest. So the first practice, Janet being very pitta, we did an intake, and then she said, okay, I want to do some yoga. And I said, okay, let's do some yoga. And I suggested, she just looked, we were in the bed, she was in the bedroom. I said, why don't you just lie down on the bed and we'll just do some gentle stuff. She's like, no, that's not yoga. I said, okay. So, you give them what they want. So we just did a little bit of grounding work, connection with the body, and tried some very typical warm-ups of seeing if she could come up on her toes side to side, some pendular movement, and some breathing. I checked in with her 2 days later, and she said, yeah, that my hips didn't really like that. And I said, okay, so let's schedule another practice so that you can be on your back and we can create some length and space in that hip. So I am not a physio. So I talked to my neighbor who's a physio and specializes in hips, and talked to Janet and got some referrals to some physios that have some YouTube channels. There's a guy from El Paso, and I yogified some of the physio exercises that this guy was put them all together in kind of a little bit of a vinyasa. But the idea really was, again, the breathing, the pain scale, talking about that quite a bit, and just creating some space in the front body. So Tadaka Mudra, and then a little bit of a vinyasa of sliding, which is the third one, sliding the leg forward, and then hand on the shin, creating a little bit of pressure, because the flexion can be a problem for people with the labral hips tear. So gently pulling in and then really pressing out into the hands, creating that resistance, creating some space in the hip, and then lengthening the leg up to the sky. And Janet's really, her body responded well to this combination. She said it really helped create some space in that hip and get the hip back in the socket correctly. And then we did some windshield wipers. And in the second practice, we added more support for the internal and external rotation. So there was less stress on the hip. Sleeping Vishnu, she loved, again, just kind of trying to strengthen the outer hip, because the hip is internally rotating with this tear, pardon me. Child's pose, which she said was fine, but the second practice, we added a poof, like a big pillow, and she found that much more relaxing, less pressure on the hip. And then we just continued to build on this. So Janet was a great student. She was doing physio. She was really motivated to get herself in a state of reduced pain. And so we just added on to the practice a little bit. Much the same with, you can't tell in number 5, these little squares. Maggie would tell you I'm not the best drawer. I am improving, but I'm not the best drawer. The little squares are blocks and pillows. So when she was doing Baddha Konasana, one leg at a time and then both legs, so the legs weren't coming all the way down, less pressure on the hip for her. And the idea of getting her, because she's so pitta, to accept that a prop was a good thing was something that we had to work through, that it wasn't a sign of weakness, that having this block or other things we'll show you in a moment, with number 9 Divipadapidam bridge, having a block between the legs so that she could squeeze in and strengthen the inner thighs and keep the hips in alignment. She was like, I don't think I need this. And I said, well, when you do your practice this week, try it with the left foot forward, see how that feels. And as she did it, she was like, yeah, that actually really did help me. But she was quite resistant to the idea of needing a prop that was going to help her, that she was just going to, move her way through this by sheer will and brute force, which is generally the way that she has managed things, always with grace. But and we did bridge again, the idea of opening through the front of the hip, creating some space with a block underneath it. She actually, the feedback was she really enjoyed supportive bridge once she got into the idea that this could create some space, and did help her. And then January, so we just kind of continued on with this and just added very much the same thing. We're number 5, we're doing some Upanasana. So again, creating the hip. She was at this point able to bring her legs in closer to her chest with much less pain. So working on creating some strength in the low belly pelvic floor to support the hip. Again, a lot of the same shapes, but kind of adding on sleeping Vishnu. We came up on the arm, leg up. She's quite a strong and fit person. So when she was able to do it, she liked the physical challenges that we could add in. And then at this point, she found that she no longer needed the block for Divipadapidam in number 9. And then for Shavasana, so I sent her on WhatsApp. It's actually in the references at the back, but I did a WhatsApp, spoke into the thing and just kind of did a couple of the idea of this Shavasana sequence. Tiana's done this with us. Maggie, you've done this with us. I think Tiana, I just put Tiana as my source because that was my first experience. Neil also does this, but focusing on a particular part of the body. So breathing, and then you focus on your right shoulder and feel all the sensations. And then with an exhale, release that. Another inhale, move to another area of your body, maybe your left knee. And then feel the sensations, let it go. Move to the pain in the left hip. You're not going to stay there. You're just going to experience this, move out of it. So that idea of moving in and out of the pain and finding ease. And again, Janet really liked it, found it helpful. Did do this 3-4 times a week. When she'd come in from a walk, she would just often just turn it on, lay down and do this, or after she'd done her physio. And then now we're in March. She's going to, in April, she was going to Portugal and France to do some hiking and visiting. So she was doing much better, but did want to just kind of take the practice a little bit further to help her in case she, has a lot of these things that she knew what to do with. So a lot of the same stuff that we'd been doing, just kind of adding on, making things a little bit perhaps a little more challenging for her, repeating more often, starting with the left leg 2 times and with a Baddha Konasana, right leg 1 time, just focusing on strengthening that side of the body. And then what we added here was the idea of, I'll actually go to the next, meditating on the idea of universal energy, whatever you want to call it, focusing on the breath, relaxing the body parts, and then as you inhale, you're inhaling the universal energy into the body, feeling that energy in the body. As you exhale, releasing. Inhale the universal energy, move that to areas of pain and discomfort, release the breath, release the tension. So, and that's, for me, that was a source. Mr. Sridhar did that with me when I was in Chennai, when I re-tore my rotator cuff. What was it, last year? And then I'm not going to play these. I can, but it's just the relaxation sequences that I sent to Janet. And she really liked my chanting, which she was like, I love it. I think because people don't know what you're saying. If you're, that's my experience with when I'm chanting to my classes. They're like, that was so nice. I'm like, you don't know any idea what I said, but I think you just like the sound of the words. So, and then, so a couple of things that Janet said to me after, I guess she'd been doing it for a month. She sent me just a text and she said, I had the best day. I had my first pain-free day I've had in as long as I can remember. That she was out doing things. And it wasn't just yoga. She was doing physio. She was doing acupuncture. She was doing everything. She's like really keen to get healed. And then another 3-4 weeks, again, her sleep had improved, that she was getting some solid sleep that was reducing the pain. And so it wasn't in isolation, but it certainly helped her in her healing process. And then references, websites, podcasts, used them all. YouTube. So Dr. David Midaw from El Paso, he's the guy who's physio sequences I kind of stole. And that's it.
Maggie, do you want me to provide my feedback or how do you want to do it?
Sure. Could you stop sharing, Jane?
Mhm.
Thank you. Yeah. Great. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, you go ahead, Tracy.
Sure. Thanks, Jane. Great job. I just have a few things to talk about in terms of sort of physio perspective of labral tears, and then some feedback for you. So interestingly enough, there are a number of conditions in the body. Discs are very similar to labral tears. They're both, this cartilage that's almost like rubber, right? So we've got this really dense cartilage. What they found when they did MRIs on people with or without pain is that a lot of us are walking around with labral tears and don't know it, like a lot. It's a really weird, mysterious thing, both with discs and with labral tears, is that the pathology doesn't correlate with the symptomology. Like there's some weird thing. We have people that have more pain and a minor tear. We have people that they find a major, whatever. Anyway, so there's a little bit of mystery to it. And I think mostly it's where is the tear located. SLAP tears. I don't know if you've heard of a SLAP. That's the superior labral tear that goes from the front AP, anterior to posterior. Those are the most common ones. So my guess about why she does better in hiking and uneven ground than she does on flat is her pelvic tilt, right? So as soon as we have to hike uphill, we tip our pelvis. We go into an anterior pelvic tilt. Right. And so that's going to shift the acetabulum. So we've got the cartilage, the labrum's attached to the acetabulum, right? And it's what's keeping that femur from grinding in there, right? And so as soon as you do an anterior pelvic tilt, you shift that acetabulum forward. And so if she has a SLAP tear, she then might not be weight bearing on it.
She does have a SLAP tear.
Okay. Yeah. So I think that's what's going on, which is really nice considering she likes hiking. But
What about going down the hill? Then is it not, are you not pushing your pelvis
no,
forward?
you do still tend to go into an anterior tilt.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was actually wondering if you could manipulate her walking, but I decided not to go there because it sounds like you had some good outcomes. With respect to her practice, first thing everybody probably noticed is none of it's in standing. And that's brilliant, right?
Well, we
You
tried because that's what she wanted, but I knew that wasn't going to work.
yeah, yeah. So basically, if we know that this is, what's between grinding the hip joint and not, is we want to just take the weight off, right? So you unloaded it. Like the most weight you were putting through it was like the bridging, and that's only like half her body weight, right? And so I thought that was great. That I loved your practice goal to create length and space, and strengthen up those glutes and such, because we want to, as much as possible, do practices where we're reducing the load, reducing the weight bearing. She'd be someone that if she really wanted to do a hard workout, she could do something like pool running and be an attraction kind of thing. But I liked how your practices targeted all the muscle groups of the hip and the core, and that made sense to me. And I liked how you had the blocks to make sure she didn't go too far into external rotation, even if she wasn't super keen on having those. I think those are a really wise point. I'll put some other notes in your thing, but in terms of the only other thing I wanted to share was, you say, wow, it worked. And is that, the magic of yoga kind of thing, but really you did a brilliant job of strengthening up around there. And so there's shock absorption in muscle, right? So the more muscle you've got around the hip, the less you're going to have to put right through the joint, right? So you did a great job of that. And then you also shifted her APA axis. You relieved that stress with those, elongated exhales and all the practices that you have in there. You reduced her angst about this. And so it shifted her perception of it, but it also would have shifted her hormonal balance in terms of how she truly is perceiving that discomfort. So, yeah, no, I thought it was great. You shifted to saying labrum from labrum. I was going to correct you, but
sorry.
well done. It is labrum. It's labrum.
Okay.
And it's cortisone, not cortisol.
Cortisone. Okay. Thank you.
You wouldn't want to inject somebody with cortisol, stress them out.
No, you're right. I think that's what I hear all the time.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I'll put the other stuff on your
Okay,
sheet,
thanks.
but yeah, great job.
Thank you very much, Jane. Not too much to add. I know we had talked about this throughout the last 8 months, so it was all pretty familiar. You did a wonderful job introducing what you were doing, introducing what the problem was and how you were going to approach it. You also did the same with introducing your case. I appreciate it. The Panchamaya review that you kept it pretty simple, and the Bhavana. In terms of the practice, using Neil's pain scale combined with the Happy Faces, Wong Baker's scale, and I guess those were part of your outcome measures. It would have been better for me if, I mean, it was obvious, I'm sure, to all of us, but just to make it clear that those were actually your measures, were
Okay.
Neil's pain scale, and then and I'm just going to skip to that right away because it's on the same topic. Is so your outcome measures were the Panchamayas, Wong Baker's scale, and Neil's scale, the pain scale. So I wasn't clear what the results were from looking at those measures from the beginning to the end. So I didn't see that in your presentation, and that might be me that I somehow missed that. But
No, I don't. I think I neglected to put that in there.
oh, okay.
I
So
should have said we started here with the pain scale like this face and we got to this face, which I
so
did do.
if
I
you
implied it, but I didn't put it. Yeah.
if you have that data and you want to do an update of your slideshow for us before we grade that part,
Yeah.
that would be great, because I suspect you have that info, but it wasn't there, and I just was like, where are the
Okay,
outcomes? Where's,
thank you.
where are the results? And then a discussion of the results. So Tracy just gave a lot of great pointers from a physiotherapy and medical perspective on the results in terms of like the choices you made and why. So you can you can use that in your discussion section of the results, what she shared with you. So that would be good. And then the HPA access, if I'm saying that right, the whole hormonal and endocrine system network, how you affected that through the breathing and the meditation. So anyway, that's the only thing that needs to be beefed up in your presentation. The rest of it was great. And I just want to speak back to what you did in your practice. So yeah, like I would have liked to have heard but you mentioned in the beginning, but a little bit more about like the before and after of her experience with Neil's scale and bringing that into her practice. Oh, I feel safe. Should I keep going? Like a little bit more on that. It was really cool, the Wong Baker's happy face vigils. I'd actually never thought of this, but in Ayurveda, we're trained to actually, I think you've heard me speak to this often, just get a sense of the person by looking at their face, by reading their face. So it's actually kind of an ancient practice to diagnose, but also check on the prognosis of somebody based on, if that's the right word, their progression based on their face. So that would be something to explore a bit more if you were to take this further, is to maybe weave that in a little bit more, that understanding from Ayurveda, which you can learn from Jayashri Lambert. She actually does seminars on that, and she's quite expert in that. And I have some info on that if you're interested. Love the tie-ins with yoga philosophy, of course, and the pranayama kramas. Well done. I had a question whether in the sleeping Vishnu poses, it looked like you were focusing on strength, but were you doing that traction piece that I know I'm very keen on, where you bend the
Yes.
lower leg and extend from the fingertips all the way to the toes on the inhale? Okay, and that was effective for her.
Yeah, she really liked that. It was all about like, can you create space in the hip and the whole body? Because the left side, because of the pain, she kind of was collapsed a little bit more on that left side.
Okay. So yeah, I was just wondering, did you bend the lower leg, especially with the left leg on top? Did you bend it so that it can create more space? Did you
We
do that?
started with the bent, and then as she got stronger, we tried it with both legs straight, and she got to, depending on how she was feeling, but we moved to that because that's a bit stronger.
Yeah. Okay.
And then
Yeah.
up on the elbow with the ribs up and giving her options.
Okay. All of that movement.
But that was
Yeah.
the progression.
Okay. I have found myself that keeping the lower leg bent gives you more traction because of the way it extends the top hip. But I don't know if Tracy has any comments on that, but that's been my experience. So it's just a practice-based evidence
I
comment.
could see
No, that
like
makes sense
your
because
pelvis
of
is
the
more
traction.
stable.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Tracy?
Sorry to interrupt. It just makes sense, right? With the traction.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a bit of a discovery for me in my own hip, and then with a student that I worked with in this way. And Tracy, it was really interesting to hear. I actually didn't know that, but it was my experience. And Jane's obviously that the supine practices, the how they worked. I actually didn't know why they worked better than the standing, but I guess it's you're not compressing the hip when you're lying down. You can release that load, right? The weight bearing. I think I understood that. Is that right, Tracy? Did I get that?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's potentially bone on bone if it's a bad enough tear. But
Okay.
as soon as we take gravity out of the equation and do it in a,
Okay.
horizontal plane, then you're not going to have that same kind of grinding at the joint.
So this is just a great example for me of, after all years of experience or whatever, and actually working with someone, in this, I actually didn't know that anatomy piece, but in a practice-based way, I figured out that that was the best way to work. So it is helpful, now that we understand the medical reason for that. It might be easier to understand. We could explain it to the person. Like someone like this who's very pitta, it might be helpful to actually say, you know what, it's going to be better for your hip if you lie down. This is why physiotherapy, like that kind of thing. It just gives us a bit more cred. So I am happy to have learned that today. So thank you for that. And yes, the pendulating pain supine meditation. Something I've just been doing recently is just when, I'm bringing in something like, even a body scan or progressive relaxation. I've been like, I've taught both those recently, and for a women's group I'm part of here, and they wanted to know the history. And I was like, I realized, my God, I actually don't know the history of these. I learned them from someone. So that's just a discussion about looking at primary source versus secondary source.
Mm.
So all of you have learned things through secondary sources through your teachers, which is great, and me as well. And I think it is honoring and just scholarly to try to look at the primary source and figure that out. So it might be fun. I would love to know that if you discover that, who created this pendulating pain supine meditation. I'm not sure, because I learned it from Neil.
Mhm.
So, and you learned it from Tian and Neil and then me. So those are all very like secondary, right? And then it's interesting also the bringing prana to different areas of the body to nourish those areas. I learned that from Mr. Schreeder. That's something he does very like a lot within asana, pranayama, and meditation practices. He works on nourishing areas of weakness with prana. And I assume he learned it from his teacher, who learned it from his, but I have no idea. So that was interesting for me to kind of think about. And also it occurred to me with that, I don't know what you think about that, and Tracy or anyone, it almost contradicts the pendulating between areas of pain and no pain when you're because Mr. Schreeder doesn't teach it that way of like moving away from it. You actually just stay there and
Mm.
and focus on it. So it made me curious what that's about. And I think it's probably just the bhavana that changes the vibe. The bhavana is nourishing of that, and then the bhavana of the pendulating is let's touch the pain and then go away from the pain, and it's just got, it has a different bhavana, and then the effect is different. So anyway, just something to think about. It made me, I'd never thought about that before, but as you were speaking, I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder how that works. I was like, bhavana, but
And it could also be cultural, because I can only speak to the West, that if we're in discomfort, we like to move away from it, right? I think it's a natural thing, but traditionally in yoga, they say the pose doesn't begin until Mr. Iyengar, pose doesn't begin until you start to really feel pose, right? And you stay in that discomfort. So that might be where Mr. Sridhar is coming with his versus the physio. I don't know, like that's just, as you were saying that came to mind.
yeah. Tracy, any comment on that? I'm getting into philosophy here a little bit, but
Yeah,
any
no, I was
comment?
just going to say that the body scan for pain in mindfulness practice in the MBSR, if you get to a point of pain in the scan, you're actually meant to approach it with curiosity and then sort of gently explore and then come away. So that same kind of approach. But it does make so much sense, because as soon as you're so heightened by pain, I liked what you just said, Jane, about how our Western philosophy around pain is, we're so reactive to it. And for someone like her, unless she decides to opt for the surgery, which can be minimally invasive, like if I were her, I think I would, but she's going to have to manage it. So normalizing that is exactly the right way.
Yeah, that's true. Tracy, one of my big learnings in this past 8 months through GF Strong through exposure therapy, and then through the mindfulness-based stress reduction course that I did, was this idea of approaching discomfort, and really brought me home to yoga philosophy again of how does that work? And it was like, oh, moving away from dvesha, pushing something away, as we call it, aversion, moving away from that, to get away from the sukham dukkam. Uh, I want it, I don't want it. It's suffering. I want pleasure, the pleasure pain game. It kind of cuts through that, and then brings you to more of a state of balance. So anyway, I wrote something about that, actually, how that works with yoga philosophy. If you're interested, I wrote something when I was thinking about that one day. So Jane, thank you for making us think. I wanted to just say, in terms of chanting, I loved that you said your students loved your chanting, and even if you don't think you're a great chanter, um, the thing is, when you chant and it's your voice versus say sharing a chant that I did, or Mr. Shrita or Radha, or Mr. Desigachar, when you share a chant with your voice, what Radha has said to me, Radha Sridhar, is it links you to your student. So she said it's always important that you send your recording. And that's the same. For the first time in my life, I've started sending meditations to people in this last year, because I've been basically meditating for the last 8 months as my primary practice. And I've gotten this feedback. It's like, oh, it's like magic. And I know it's not that. I know it's not just the practice. I mean, clinically, okay, maybe this, that, and the other helps with, from the practice itself, hopefully. But I think a lot of it is just that sense of being cared for that comes across through the time you've taken to make that recording, to sending it, to them listening to it. It connects them to you through the voice, and it's very powerful. So I just wanted to say that for everyone, just a really good thing to keep in mind. I think we talked about everything else. Your presentation skills, wonderful, very engaging. You're super confident and clear, and well done. So if you just want to clean up that part about the outcome
faces.
measure,
Yep.
about specifically, these are my outcome measures. This was the baseline. This was the results, and maybe something in between what you actually tracked. Give that to us, and then we'll be able to mark that piece. Tracy, are you okay with that? Because I mean, I don't want Jane to lose all those grades, and I'm pretty sure she knows that.
Yeah, I just left it blank on my grading sheet.
Okay. Right. Okay, so let's take a 10-minute. Thank you so much, Jane. Great start to
Yep.
the day. And Swati, you're going to be next. I'm being a little chill about the time because we only have 2 presenters today. Maddie, unfortunately, has a family thing going on, so we'll have to figure out how that works. But yes, let's take 10 minutes. Thank you. Hey, folks. It's coming back when you're ready. Swatie, if you want to set up, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, can you see my slide?
Could you press presenter view, Swatie?
I'm not sure because I shared my screen and that's all. I mean, it's there on my iPad. Are you not able to see my screen?
I see in the upper left corner an arrow that says PowerPoint beside it. I wonder if you click there. There you go. And then if you go to home, if you press on home on the home
Which
button on the top,
start?
there you go, you got it.
You got okay.
Great.
Because it's an iPad, I don't know like how.
It took me many tries of starting to present to figure that out in the early days of PowerPoint. That's the hardest part. Go ahead, Swatie.
Hey, welcome everyone. Imagine yourself
Can you get me
waking
some
up.
water, please?
Imagine
Sorry,
your-
Swatie, I thought I was muted.
It's okay. Imagine yourself waking up every morning with a list of tasks already waiting for you. This is the reality of today's modern life, where everyone is caught in the vicious loop of deadlines, obligations, and fatigue. This also reflects a widespread challenge of human race caught in the mode of constant stimulation, where stress is the buzzword. So today with this capstone presentation, I will guide you into the idea why yoga therapy worked as a therapeutic intervention and how this whole practice supported my participant who turned into this whole idea of yoga therapy in the most stressful times of life. So yoga therapy integrates all dimensions of a complete being and also aims to create a supportive, inclusive environment for everyone, irrespective of their physical, psychological, and cultural background. The relationship between stress and disease was first recognized by Hans Selle, and he describes stress as a universal body reaction to any demanding situation. This response is, it varies from person to person and it's always inherently built in the system. So on this slide, I have two pictures and I'm going to explain them together. Hans described the stress syndrome in three phases: alarm, resistance, and exhaustion stage. So the alarm stage is the first stage where the body starts to recognize the stressor and sends the stress signals through HPA axis to activate sympathetic nervous system. At this time, certain adrenaline-like chemicals known as cytocalamines are released in the bloodstream. And alongside, the pituitary gland is also activated by hypothalamus, which is a stress button. And it also starts releasing adrenocorticotropic hormone that again travels through the bloodstream to the adrenal glands, and this starts releasing cortisol. So at this point, the body energy production is increased and blood sugar level are rising up, the heart rate and blood pressure goes up. Digestion and immune system are compromised and they are slowed down. And when the stressor is moved away, the body tries to restore its balance and come back to normalcy. So alarm and resistance stage kind of overlaps with each other. However, if the stress is prolonged, it becomes chronic and it leads the body into exhaustion stage, where either a physical or a psychological issue starts manifesting as disease. I'm not sure why my slides are moving like just on their own. Okay, so according to let's understand a little bit. The understanding of the stress here is according to American Psychological Association and also from the Rice Psychology. So according to APA, the stress manifestation is not just a physical or a mental concern, but it can also have long-term masking effects, which linger long after the stressor is gone. And from the Rice Psychology Group, they also highlighted the importance of having supportive social environments, which can enhance the psychological and biological health. So if you look at the Rice Psychology group picture again, the multifaceted impact of stress is categorized here in 3 areas, as I talked about. The biological sector shows that the stress affects physical health, including genetic vulnerability and certain disabilities also. The social area focuses on social aspects such as relationships, family dynamics, and work-related stress, and all these factors also influence stress. And the psychological area shows how stress can affect mental health, one's belief, attitude, and self-esteem. And the center where all these circles intersect, they shows a balance in these 3 areas are very crucial for effective stress management. So my issue is this particular case is not an isolated case, but it also shows a widespread societal concern for women who juggles between multiple roles and responsibilities. A middle-aged woman particularly experiences significant life transitions in her professional and personal life, and stress during this period can have negative long-term effects on her health. So this particular study empowers this demographic by acknowledging their unique challenges, and also showcases how yoga therapy is used as a complementary holistic care. The treatments which are available, so the pharmacological, traditional, and modern techniques are there. So in the pharmacological area, antidepressants, beta blockers, some kind of sleep medications are there. Modern techniques involve cognitive behavioral therapy, mindfulness-based stress reduction, and transcranial magnetic stimulation. And all these are often used along with psychotherapy and some lifestyle modifications. And in the traditional area, there are certain practices like acupuncture, herbal remedies, massage therapy, music and dance therapy, spiritual practices, and nature therapy, which is again well-researched therapy, and it's a practice from indigenous culture. How can yoga therapy help? So we all know that yoga therapy provides a broader approach of healthcare. And by bringing specific changes in the lifestyle, it's more of a preventive healthcare. And in a broader sense, it enhances the muscular strength, improves cardiovascular and respiratory functions. Overall, it helps to generate a balance of energy in the system. These are the core components of yoga therapy. The teachings of Patanjali Yoga Sutras, that's the 8-limb path of yoga, they are integrated into Panchakosha model, 5 layers of existence, along with Ayurvedic lifestyle and spiritual chanting. And all these practices are customized to different needs, and they are always based and backed with scientific research in yoga therapy. Okay, so these are some of the studies which I have included, but I'm going to talk about the highlights in my next slide. So based on the evidence from the research, stress is found to suppress the immune system, improve cardiovascular issues like blood pressure, cholesterol. It also can change the chemistry in the digestive system. And it doesn't stop here. It can bring psychological issues like anxiety, depression, and certain kind of addictions. And from the research findings, yoga is found to be providing a profound relaxation response in the body. It's seen to improve cardiovascular health, improves the sleep quality, and bring mindfulness and better mental resilience. Overall, the system shifts from a sympathetic state to parasympathetic state. Okay, so let's look at the prevalence of stress in America. And this data is from American Psychological Association post-pandemic. It shows the increase of stress levels across all age group from 2019 to 2023. So the age group from 18 to 34 reported highest increase of stress levels from 26 to 34%. Again, we can see here the gender differences played a significant role, where women reporting a higher level of stress than men. We can see here 5.3 out of 10 as compared to 4.8. So the purpose of this particular case study was to investigate how yoga therapy can help in stress management, enhance the strength and flexibility, and improve overall quality of life of this participant. And the key area of focus in the quantitative measures was stress reduction, breath vigilance, heart rate, and blood pressure. For qualitative, we were looking at emotional eating, strength and flexibility, and in long-term effects, I was looking at the overall change in quality of life. I'm sorry, I don't know why my slides are just moving. I don't know, maybe it's the iPad thing, something. Okay, so looking at the participant history, this is a case of a 45-year-old Malaysian Chinese woman who works in a high-stress, demanding corporate environment. Her husband got laid off at that time, and she was overburdened with her extra responsibilities. And this was all creating a lot of stress for her. So the yoga therapy treatment plan was started from September and it's February. 12 yoga therapy sessions were given twice a month, 90 minutes contact, 15 minutes of self-practice was there for office or her home. And I also created 12 non-contact yoga and nidra sessions, which were given twice a month midweek, along with some yoga pep talks and diet and lifestyle changes. The measurements which were used here for the quantitative measurements, I used perceived stress scale, the stress scale from 0 to 10, which was given pre and post first session and repeated after every second session. Breath vigilance scale pre and post each session. Blood pressure was measured pre and post each session. Heart rate again pre and post each yoga therapy and each yoga nidra session. And in the quantitative, I measured the emotional eating, strength and flexibility, overall changes in quality of life as a baseline, and repeated after 6 sessions. So let's look into her mayas. In the Annamaya Kosha, her physical layer, the subjective aspects, there was a moderate to high level of stress which was seen. She was diagnosed with high cholesterol and fatty liver, and liver spots were very much visible on her face. This person led a very sedentary lifestyle, had no strength, flexibility was not there, not much. And she was mostly eating outside. And sometimes she reported that stress causes blister on her lips. And there was a bunion in her left foot in the stage 2 and 3. So we were not addressing that issue in this case study. And the objective observations were saying that this person had restricted body mobility and she always preferred to sit on the right side. Left side was weaker for her. She was a type A personality with very goal-oriented, restless. She showed a Rajasic mindset with Pitta and Vata imbalance. So moving on to Pranamaya Kosha, in the subjective measurements, her energy levels were seen. She reported that it fluctuates from low to high, and she was relying on probiotics for her easy digestion. She had a tendency to hold her breath until she realizes to breathe again. And also there were frequent mood swings. She had cravings for sugar and spicy food. And objective observations showed that breadth of unawareness showed a lack of self-attention. And there was a disrupted flow of prana, which can be because of her energy, fluctuating energy levels. And she was a shallow and heavy breather, maybe because of the stress or exhaustion. A lot of mental clutter, very talkative, and always interested in knowing why and how of any concept. And she was very expectant in the sense she expected results from all her efforts. So her Manomaya Kosha, the mental layer, the subjective observations were her comfort eating was always a way for her to cope up with the stress. And she felt the pressure of being a soul earner. And in all this, she tried to ignore her self-care because of other priorities. And all these issues and her patterns of thinking were also affecting her personal relationship. And in the objective observations, she seemed to be overburdened because of her responsibilities and uncertainties in life. So looking at the Vijnanamaya, the intellectual layer, she trusts in the power of being kind and having a positive energy. She was a Buddhist practitioner, so her Buddhist teachings were always kind of a guiding force for her. And she believed that without health, no financial freedom or time in this world is relevant. For Anandamaya, her relationships were always very important for her and she valued them a lot. And she showed that she respected diverse values and personal beliefs. And actively, she loved to participate in the causes that were aligning with her ethical and moral values. The treatment plan which I gave her started from, so I'll just brief out what we did. So session 2 to 4, the idea was to create a foundation of breath awareness along with some grounding practices for asanas. Session 5 to 8 was to encourage a deeper approach and aimed at promoting relaxation and mindfulness. So session 9 to 12 integrated earlier practices with some new techniques along with some elements of yoga philosophy. And Yoga Nidra session was held midweek throughout the program. And the goals of this were again to reduce her stress levels from baseline, increase her breath awareness and breathing pattern, and to improve her strength and flexibility, and also for her emotional regulation. So let's look at the session 2. Here, the goal here for this session was to engage her body and mind through controlled breathing. And techniques I used here were guided visualization with breathing, along with the breathing. And breathing was done with counting of breath, focusing on long exhales. And this was, the idea was to activate her parasympathetic nervous system. Stretchings and rotations were given just to release some tensions here and there. Added Tadasana with some modifications to improve her focus and balance. So balancing in the sense of balancing her body movements with the breath. And Pranayama was given in Shavasana for deeper sense of relaxation. And outcomes were seen that breathing, she actually was able to recognize her breath and counting of breath, counting in the breathing was easier for her, and body movements were always relaxing. And chair practices which were given for the office and work at home she found it beneficial. So session 3 and 4, the goal here was to focus on breath elongation, improve her spinal flexibility, relaxing her hips and back, and also strengthening the left side, which was weaker for her. And the techniques I added here along with the previous practices were Uttanasana, Chakravakasana, Balasana for spinal flexion and extension, and Anjayasana and Apanasana for hips and abdominal activation, Adho Mukha Shavasana for down regulation of sympathetic. Ujjayi was given for vagus nerve stimulation and slowing down her heart rate. And Sheetli was given for cooling and balancing her pitta. And the observations which were seen here were, she reported that she could see her ability to stay present and be mindful has increased, even at work. And the most important thing was she was able to recognize her feelings and stress triggers. Also, the relationship with food was improved. So session 5 and 6, goal here was again to address the changes, all the changes she was experiencing at her koshas. At this point, her husband was still not getting the job, so there were a lot of emotions going on with her, and this was also affecting her digestion. So I added humming breath to long exhale in, I think, Tadasana. So, and Satanama meditation was given with Nayasam. Angel arms was added, Trikonasana with a twist. And also I introduced the concept of Sthiram and Sukham from Yoga Sutra 2.46. And this was done basically to increase her ability to become more conscious and alert during the practices and do the practice without any mental struggle. So observations were seen that she reported her mind becomes very centered and calm at work. She reported that she's also using the muscles and joints she has never used before. And breathing with counting was bringing a lot of focus for her, especially on her breath. And but still, I could see her being very vulnerable at her spiritual level because there were a lot of self-doubts, maybe because of the life condition she was going through. Session 7 and 8, at this point, my client was going through an unstable job phase for herself because she was about to get laid off. And there was a lot of mind wandering and concern about her future. Husband still not got the job. So the techniques I incorporated here was the guided meditation. And the goal here for all these 2 sessions was to navigate her through this unstable phase. And focusing on staying longer in the poses for 1 or 2 seconds with longer exhales, and added a visualization on chant of Om with long exhales in Tadasana. Virabhadrasana was added to cultivate a sense of acceptance and confidence for the present situation. Chandra Bhedana with hold after exhale for her down regulation of sympathetic nervous system, and that followed by Nadi Shodhana to balance the flow of prana in the body. Ujjayi, I gave her in Shavasana to bring a sense of deeper relaxation because sitting was a little bit uncomfortable for her for a longer time. And I also yoga pep talks and some changes in the diet and lifestyle were added here. And in the observation, she felt very empowered to handle her life challenges with more grace. Still, there was a lot of anger in her towards her present situation, but still she was very hopeful that because of her spiritual aspect that she had a path forward. Session 9, here again the goal was to cultivate the inner calm and reduce tightness, which had accumulated because of a lot of stress happening in her life, and she got laid off at this point. And a lot of she had some job interviews lined up, but she was stressed up because of that. And the moment she entered the session that day, she showed me that there was a blister on her lips. So the techniques used here was the UCLA. I used a guided meditation from that, like the YouTube. And slow Tadaka Mudra, Apanasana with some modifications, Supta Eka Padakushtasana, and Jatra Parivitri. Again, I repeated some of the previous poses and added Shithli and Ujjayi combination of breathing. So the results, all of these practices, I added Savitri Pranayama here also, I couldn't see. So the idea of adding this particular pranayama this is also from one of the researches I included in my references. And this pranayama is from Gita Nanda tradition, and it works on equal inhalation and exhalation of breath with counts. And half of that is done with internal retention and external retention. Say we are breathing 4 counts in, exhaling 4 counts out. So we are retaining 2 in and 2 out. So when we are, so that is a thing. So this, the idea was to relax her entire nervous system and moreover train her mind and breath to a certain rhythm that helps with the counting of breath. And retention of practices was given to bring the idea of being a witness first before, reacting to any situation. And observations were seen, like the guided meditations, she found them very helpful, always, like she felt very lighter after, and she reported that she is able to see improvements in her strength and flexibility. Breathing was much controlled at this point, and she reported that she could feel that her lung capacity has increased by the way her abdomen was moving in and out. Okay, so session 10 and 11, she had some job interviews lined up at this point, and the goal here was to make her realize her inner power and connecting with that. So we discussed about ahimsa from Buddhist teachings and also from Yoga Sutras. And the idea was to encourage her to gently replace her negative thought patterns with the positive ones. I also introduced her to set an intention and also writing it on the paper. And this helped her to be more mindful because she found that she could direct her energy towards her goals by writing them and, reviewing them, reading them every day. I did the bridge pose, cobra pose, Gomukhasana. It didn't work very well for her, so I removed it for the future. And in the lotus pose, I gave her Om exhale in Dhyan Mudra. So we just stayed there for a little bit longer time. And in Vipreet Karni, again, the guided meditation was given here. In the observations, the client reported she participated very well in the discussion of ahimsa because she quietly, I think she could resonate very well with that whole concept because it was also from her Buddhist teachings. And intention setting was very helpful for her because I told she could direct her energy towards her goals. And yeah, Gomukhasana was removed from the future sessions. And this is the last session. So we reflected on the whole journey. We discussed how the initial goals we had set before and evaluated how we met them. And the quick review of practices and the concepts which were covered. And in the end, I chanted her Buddhist mantra as a closing ritual. So the yoga nidra session, which I gave her midweek, were based on the teachings of Swami Satyananda Saraswati. And the goal was to move her into deeper sense of relaxation with awareness. I would just brief about how what was practice was about. So it started by setting an intention to rotation of consciousness to all the body parts, then moving on to breath awareness with visualization, and there was a backward counting of breath was done by the participant. Then recalling of opposite sensational experiences like hot and cold. Again, repeating the sankalpa, which was set in the beginning, again repeating that and ending and session was ended after that. So the observations which was seen, there was an effective reduction in heart rate because I was measuring her heart rate. So it was very helpful to see that. And the whole practice was always, she found it very calm and relaxed. She reported that there's a reduction in her mind wandering. And especially it was given on Wednesday night. So she felt recharged, to face her next days. And these are the guidelines from the Ayurveda perspective. So intake of ghee was recommended to increase her ojas, including coconut water for cooling her pitta, turmeric having anti-inflammatory properties, and also adding some bitter food because in Ayurveda, bitter is known to, it reduces the cravings of having the sugary food. Also, food, the main thing were food to avoid were refined sugar, food high in with hot peppers and green chilies. And most important thing which we discussed was to eat mindfully without distractions, because this person reported of eating her dinner most of the times in the car. And she said that she has a habit of stuffing the food in her mouth without thinking what it is. So these are the results from perceived stress scale. So looking at the baseline, which is seen high as compared to the post last session. So the November and December scores were high maybe because of an external stressors and a lot of things going on in her life. And she also reported that without all these sessions, these stress levels would have been much, much higher. So overall, yoga therapy intervention was seen beneficial in reducing her stress levels. And this is the result from breath vigilance scale. The client showed the growing attention of breathing pattern, as you can see in the green post session, and the most was improved in December. The February's pre-session scores and post-session scores are close as compared to the September pre and post-session. So this shows that the heightened awareness of breath was there with all these sessions, and she had a better stability in her breath. Okay, sorry. So these are the results from blood pressure. So blood pressure for this person remained comparatively stable with very minor fluctuations. And since the BP remains stable, it suggests that yoga therapy was not having any negative outcomes. It was always positive for her. And also, since stress is known to be a risk factor for hypertension, so I feel that maintaining a stable blood pressure can be an essential goal, even though this participant had no previous history of hypertension. And these are the results of heart rate from yoga therapy sessions. So you can see in the blue bar, a consistent reduction in heart rate was seen post-session, which shows the activation of parasympathetic nervous system. And the red bar shows the extent of decrease of heart rate, pre and post sessions. And these are the results from yoga nidra sessions of the heart rate. So there is again a consistent decrease throughout the yoga nidra sessions, and most noticeable you can see in session 10 and 11. It may be because of the reduction of the external stresses here. And also there's a variability you can see in the post session and pre-session. So that also indicates the depth of the relaxation which is received from these sessions. And this also suggests that regular yoga and nidra sessions can be very beneficial for individuals having similar health condition. In the qualitative measurements for emotional eating at the baseline, initially this participant was indulging herself in sugary and spicy foods, and she was eating mostly outside. There was tightness, sorry. She was eating to survive, and cooking was a stress for her. She was not cooking at all. And after 6 months, she reported she made a good progress in her food choices. She was managing her emotional eating, and also tried to include a lot of veggies and cooking small meals at home. In the qualitative strength and flexibility at the baseline, her flexibility scale was seen 4 from the scale of 1 to 10, and strength again was at 4. And she reported tightness everywhere in her body, shoulder, waist, hips, and thighs. And after 6 months, so there's overall change in the flexibility scale, moved to 6.5, and strength moved to 7. And I could see her sitting longer on the floor and turning her waist easily, and core muscles were also improved. She could be in and out longer and easier. And these are the results of overall changes in the quality of life. So she reported overall improvement in her strength and flexibility, increase in her energy levels. Also, the most important thing she found was like sessions, they provided a safe space for her emotional release, and discussing all the thoughts also helped her to make her, bring healthier lifestyle choices. So overall, in the conclusion, yoga therapy was seen proven effective in improving her ability to handle stress in real time, and most importantly, recognizing the stress triggers. And the integration of yoga nidra was also beneficial for her because it helped her to develop deeper insights into her thinking patterns, and along with yoga philosophy. overall, the results aligned well with the study goals. Looking at the limitations, one of the biggest challenge I could see in this case was the lack of practice outside of sessions, and this may be affecting the results. Since this was a single case study, so the results of this particular case may not represent others because of the unique circumstances and personality traits of this individual. And the data which is collected may not be accurate because of this participants' her own perception and openness to share the information. And for the future prospects, including more diverse pool of participants, maybe more than one, can provide a broader application of yoga therapy intervention. And also integrating these individualized case studies into regular healthcare settings can improve and enhance their benefits. And lastly, understanding the limitations of these individualized case studies can also benefit other yoga therapists and training programs. And this case also highlights the need for workplaces to adopt holistic practices for overall well-being of their employees. The learning outcomes, the study shows the importance of creating customized yoga programs that can fit specific needs across all demographics. Also, workplace stressors are seen to reduce the effectiveness of yoga therapy. So this also emphasizes the importance of developing the strategies which can keep people interested in practicing yoga for its lasting benefits. And these are the references I included in my case study. And moving on to the session. So I have already discussed that, but I can just briefly go through. I'm not sure how much time I have. So I'll just overview this whole thing.
It can take a few minutes, Swatie.
Okay, so I'm just rushing. My heart rate is going up. Okay, the session 2, so started again with the belly breathing. Idea was to focus on making her more aware of her breath. And I included a flower visualization here, like opening of petals and closing as you're inhaling and exhaling. Then moved on from that, I moved on to the counts with the same pattern, same idea of visualization with counting. So she was counting internally and I was, guiding her through the visualization. Then I tried to introduce some toe finger movements for Banyan, though I was not addressing this issue, but just for the general overall mobility, bringing the, the movement in the body. Santadasana and okay, so I introduced that on the chair so that she is aware of how it can be done in the chair and in her office. And then moving on to Tadasana with some modifications. Then some twist, standing twist, and then again lying down in the belly breathing, like moving the hands and feet away from each other, and we practice the same visualization again. So next session started again with the belly breathing with count, and the focus was to again on longer exhales to practice awareness and control on the breathing. Then we introduced, like we reported the same thing, the Tadasana with some modifications, moving on to Uttanasana, Adho Mukha Shavasana, Apanasana, Apanasana with some, the idea was here again to move her breath to the area, so I was not talking about this to her, but my intention was to use the idea of Yoga Sutra like Pratanya Shatalya, Ananta Samapatti Dhyam. So making her efforts with the breath and then making that effort effortless until and unless she starts realizing that movement of breath and breath awareness is kind of relaxing that whole area. So I have not written like completely in this, but the idea intention of giving all these practices was that moving her into that state of Ananta Samapatti Dhyam. Okay, so again repeated the same pose, added Chakravakrasana, Balasana, like shifting the weight on one side of the hips just to stretch and relax. Prithvi Namaskara was added here. Then Urdhva Parasita Padasana, sorry. Here I added Sheetli with head movement and Ujjayi, Sheetli and Ujjayi combination with head movement for cooling and balancing of her pitta. Okay, so session 4, again added humming sound. So humming of and Tadasana, then angel arms and Trikonasana with a twist. And that all we were doing with support because she was not very flexible. Then Satanama meditation was given in Tadaka Mudra. Sorry. Okay, moving on to session 6. Here I introduced the concept of Stiram and Sukham. To be conscious and alert with firmness and stability in her body. And Sukha was to give the idea of being relaxed and comfortable in that pose. And all these we were doing with more awareness on the breath. So breathing was the main focus here.
Sorry to interrupt, Swati. Could you just say it up? Just because we're
okay. So this is session 7. I have already talked about this before. So added Chandrabhedna and Nadi Shodhana here in Pranayama. Okay, here in session 8, I introduced Kapalbhati. So idea was here to stimulate the system and followed it by a deeper sense of relaxation. And okay, and session 9, guided meditations from UCLA. All this, I think, all the modifications of the previous practices, and added Savitri Pranayama here. Okay, and these are the link to my Maya observation chart from to February. And this is the scale which I used for the stress scale which I used. And then this is the breath vigilance scale. For heart rate, I'm not sure what's happening. For the heart rate, I use the blood pressure, the Apple Watch 2, and blood pressure, I use this machine Omicron. I'm not sure what is happening. Oh my God, it's so difficult on this. 1 second, I'll just close this. Okay.
You can relax now, Swati. That was so unfair that your iPad was playing games with you. That makes it more stressful.
I know. It's just moving on and on. Yeah. Before I close, I just take 1 or 2 minutes. Is that okay, Maggie? Okay. So I would like to say thanks to all the teachers who are here and who are not here, who were the part of this program, and also to my batchmates. And it was fun having you all. It was quite a learning experience. And I want to close this presentation with a chant. So this chant is a prayer to our gurus from, this was written by Adi Shankara, who was a sage from 8th century BC. And this chant is for, invoking the knowledge of the self in us, which is the whole realization of self and the Brahman, the universe. And it is also said that from Brahman, the Guru and the self, they are all considered as one. And Guru is the light, is the guiding force, which shows us the way to realize this universal reality. So this is a chant, in honor of that. So I'd like to invite you to join your hands to your heart center. Oh. अखण्डमण्डलाकारम् व्याप्तं येन चराचरम् तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। गुरु ब्रह्मा गुरु विष्णुः गुरुदेवो महेश्वरः गुरुदेव परं ब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। हरि ओम। Thank you.
Well, what a beautiful way for us to close our capstones. Bravo, Swati. I'm so proud of you. You have worked so hard. I'm so proud of you. Yeah, it was a knock out of the park. Um, do you want to start, Tracy, while I collect myself?
Yeah, I was just going to suggest that. Yeah. I thought that that visual that you had of the stress response on the right-hand side, you had the Hans one on the left, and that stress response one, that is the HPA axis that we've been talking about. Hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal glands sit on the kidneys, nothing to do with the kidneys, but as you explained, they're releasing these stress hormones. And I love that you differentiated between acute stress and chronic stress, and that we're meant to have these acute responses. There's nothing wrong with stress. We need it. And those hormones serve a purpose, but she's gotten into that loop of chronic stress where how do you break it, right? How do you break into that HPA axis and realign things? And vagus nerve. And how many times did you, like the humming and so many things that you referred to were just brilliant mechanisms of let's, increase that tone in the vagal nerve. So it just made so much sense, just the whole model of it. And then I guess in terms of your objective measures, you had quite a few. That perceived stress scale and the breath vigilance and such. Great that you had blood pressure and heart rate, because those ones are great for that HPA axis. I'm sure Maggie was thinking the same. Maybe heart rate variability would be interesting. I didn't see some of the ones on the other side because the slide moved too quickly, but I know you had quality of life and such. But I guess I wanted to talk about, you had the goal of improved strength and flexibility. So great general concept, but that's, to be a goal, you'd need to be where, what joints, what muscles, and how are you going to know if that's happening? So, but then you kind of covered your bases because you had it in observations and you said you observed it. And I liked that, she was better able to say manage sitting on the floor, that sort of thing. So maybe just explaining that was going to be sort of through observation of her fluidity of movement or ability to, to change between positions or that sort of thing. That would be easier than having to measure a bunch of strength and range of motion. Because you did say there was a noticeable improvement in her strength and flexibility in that session 9. Almost done. I guess just your PSS graph. I wasn't sure that was pre and post. The other ones you'd labeled pre and post, but I wasn't sure what the 2 different colors were. That was the first one. But then I figured it out that that's what it was, because you had the yellow and the green or whatever that was. And I thought your limitations were really well considered. All of you have to recognize a case study is only, it's one student, and your idea of taking this and working with a number of students, and then you could actually start to see beyond that individual. And so I thought it was great for you to point that out because it relates to everybody. Anyway, I'll put my other ones in writing, but great job.
Thank you.
All right, so I will just add on to what Tracy talked about. So the introduction, I really enjoyed how you laid it out, really clear, including looking at yoga therapy and what it is and how it's going to address all of this in terms of your purpose. In the literature review, I noted, and I don't know, Tracy, if you know evidence around this, but I noted that the stress levels of women reduces after age 65. And I kind of wondered if that's because they have moved beyond the sandwich care of the 2 generations. Kids are grown, parents maybe have passed away and they've gone through that stage of life. So Tracy, I don't know if you had anything to add to that, but I just noticed that in what you were presenting.
I also think in terms of their endocrine system, things are more stable.
Okay, right.
Right.
So after, yeah, my friends have been telling me that after 60 it gets better. Okay, yes, that's a good point. Yeah, because I think it was lower, the stress level was lower than the men at 65. The case description, it was very concise and clear, beautiful visuals for all of it, very clear. The practice, I liked the comparison between the technique and what you observed, or I think at one point you called it an outcome, but I'm just going to say observations because I think that's how you did it most of the time. You also provided the context on life changes when you changed the practices in your 12 sessions. So that was very helpful to name that, and really showed that you were working with her as an individual. Nice links to yoga philosophy. Just be careful. It's Pratipaksha Bhavana. I'll put it in the chat, which is the working with replacing the negative with positive from the Yoga Sutras. Ahimsa, of course, could be non-harming, could be a goal within that, but that was a bit unclear. You you referred a lot to Vivekananda and other teachers, not so much to Krishnamacharya, but so I kind of was like, it would have been nice to have had you name that just to honor all of that. But it was very clear in the 12 sessions that you showed that they were very based on everything that you've learned from the program. So anyway, I just think it's good to name and honor teachers that you've learned from, at least our root teacher. Nice links to Ayurveda, the outcome measures and results, very clear. I really liked how you laid it out. I know this was really a struggle for you to, learn how to do this technologically and otherwise. And you just did such a great job of comparing the subjective and objective. And Tracy, I just have a question about this. So here, the subjective, objective, as I learned from Neil for this piece, the subjective is what the student is saying, the objective is what you're seeing as the practitioner, the healthcare practitioner. When she had high cholesterol under subjective, I assume she put it there, it's because the student is reporting that, but would that normally be put under objective?
I mean, I'd have that as medical history. That wouldn't really be something, because if it's objective, you're going to measure it with an objective measure, and we don't have the capacity to do that. So it's, it's a reported complaint or medical history bit. So it doesn't really quite fit either bucket.
Yeah, okay. So
She was diagnosed with that. Like she had her, in her reports, medical report.
Yeah. So I almost feel like Tracy, this is something I mean, again, I am not an expert on research in this area of healthcare, but it's almost like it would be helpful to have, reported observations versus practitioner observations, client observations versus practitioner observations, something like that. I'm not sure, but do you have any comment on that? I find it confusing, the subjective objective measures for those kinds of things.
Well, so if you're documenting in a clinical record, subjective would include their complaints, right?
Okay.
So yeah, anything reported, but it's not really an outcome measure if it's just something they've reported initially that you need to consider, but it's not an outcome measure. So it would just be medical history.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we can talk more about that later. I'm still trying to get my head around all that. Okay, relationship strain. You mentioned that under Manomaya, and it should be Ananda Maya. And it seems to be linked to Vijnana Maya, her beliefs about caring for others before herself. So just watching that distinction. Again, the presentation of the results, the pre and post of each session, that you recorded that so diligently for all the various practices. And I really like the difference box you had in one of the skills. You showed the difference between the two. Is just, really highlighted that well. And then giving us, zooming out and looking at the baseline versus the 6-month results again to give us a different lens, very helpful. And in your discussion, your general overview of what you learned, the learning outcomes, I like that you added that, and that you presented the limitations very well, as Tracy mentioned, the limitations of it being an N1 situation, one number in the study versus, many subjects. And the more subjects you have, the more data you have, of course, it's going to, give you better understanding. But Tracy, I don't know if you could speak to that, the benefit of what the benefit of the case study, the N1 situation versus many subjects, what's the benefit of that in terms of research? I'd like to hear from you on that.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just such a good starting point, right? You're not going to have the ability to be as finely tuned to multiple participants, right? But if you can just really hone in on your one subject as you did, then you're doing your very best work, practice, considerations, everything else. So then you go, okay, so now I've developed this. Step 2 is exactly as you said. Now let's bring in, let's try this with 3 or 4 other people, either individually, continue to do it one-on-one, and compare your outcome measures. And then you can start to have some aggregate data, but you don't want to lose the finesse that you have of working individually with someone.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, Tracy, like the level of care and actually data you get from being with one person and the knowledge versus many, it's very, very different. And I like that idea of actually trying what you've tried with that one person on many. But I think from a yoga therapy perspective, there's this push against creating any protocols for what we do because it's all going to have to be adapted. So I'm not really sure that would be well received in the community. But what do you think about that?
So maybe not calling it a protocol, but simply just saying, this is a practice that worked for this student. But I agree. I see what you mean, though, because yoga therapy is so incredibly individualized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no protocol. And even like, how we do group yoga therapy, I've tried to teach the students that it's not like you go in with your sequence. Like eventually, you don't go in with your sequence totally nailed down. You might have an idea conceptually, I'm working with this, and you kind of bring up certain ideas in your mind of what you might want to do. And, you come up with kind of a draft. But when you arrive in the room, I think any good teaching is you're in the moment, you're doing an intake with the students that day, you're seeing what's going on that day, you're revising what you're doing based on that moment, right? So that's what I always tell my students, the difference between even online, coming to a online class live versus seeing it taped. The difference is you were there and I took your situation in mind when I created that sequence that day for what you gave me as an overview, but also that day. Does that make sense? So this individualized approach is very key to the whole concept of yoga therapy. Jessica, you wanted to say something?
Oh yeah, I was just going to say that I think a case study approach where you're working with one individual is a really great way to connect with the contextual variability of that individual and kind of narrow in on a specific research question that can guide parameters for other studies. So case studies can be really rich sources of research questions that can then be extrapolated out into larger studies with bigger populations. So you can kind of get that ability to generalize the results. But yeah, I've noticed that with case studies, they just offer a really rich reservoir of research question generation.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions for either Jane? Because sorry, I forgot to ask. Sorry, Jane. Had my second cup of matcha for Jane or Swatie for what they've presented today. Any comments, questions, curiosities? Well, thank you so much, both of you. I mean, different strengths and different, different presentations, both very well done and wonderful way to close. So I'd like to close officially with just an opportunity for each of you to just share anything you would like to say to the group to close. So, in less than 5 minutes, maybe, if each of you could just share what you would like to say to the group to close. Yeah, Tracy.
Maybe we could have a quick bio break before we do that.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I forgot about the break.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, sorry, my bad. I'm so sorry. The concussion brain is not quite fixed, I have to remember. So let me just pause the record. All right, would anyone like to start with sharing closing comments?
Start. I'll keep it short, but I just want to say thank you to everybody and for your presence and for all the teachers that aren't here and the teachers who were with us. Yeah, just so much knowledge and so much to learn as we go. And I just feel like it's the continuation of the journey because there's so much more to learn. So it's just keep going. And yeah, it's kind of well, and the other thing I wanted to share was while I was going through a really hard time in my life with the wildfire, I really appreciated everybody's presence there too and support. I've learned a lot through that experience and through using yoga therapy to help me get through it as well. And it's really shaped where I'd like to help others too. So just shows how life does its twists and turns and can be really difficult sometimes. And we can be there for each other, but we can also be there for ourselves if we can figure out some tools and resources. So I think um, like the tradition, the lineage, the feeling of how we're just a part of a much greater lineage, and that to be honored, it feels like an honor to be a part of that. So yeah, and an honor to be a part of continuing with this specific form of living and being. Yeah, thank you. Thanks to all the teachers, which is all of us too, teaching each other.
Okay, well said, Maya. And just to add to that as a reflection, yeah, the journey continues. When you become certified, you actually have to do professional development. I think it's 23 hours every 3 years, not actually that much. And there's various things you can do to do that. But I will be offering graduate courses in my retirement from Capilano in a year from now. So I'm going to hopefully have the brain and will. It feels like my brain right now is just starving to do all sorts of things. So I think it's going to be coming pretty soon, starting to organize some things. And Tracy, I want to talk to you about that. And I will be bringing in the other teachers from the program to work with. So we'll still be around if that all goes as planned. And then I really hope to do both online classes and small retreats with my teachers in India. That's part of my plan as well. So that's what I'm going to be doing with the last part of my life, is that, and hopefully writing books. I also hope to get my grads involved in some of what I do when it's not graduate training stuff, but more for public students. So yeah, I'm hoping to have the time and space to bring the 50 teachers and yoga therapists I've trained over the last 15 years, bring them together in different ways. And yeah, so I just wanted to let you know that you're not alone. And beyond that, forget that. That's official. Unofficially, my students over the years keep in touch with me. If you need advice on anything, you can text me. You can, hey, can I talk to you for a few minutes about something? As much as I can, I will give you my time ongoing in that way. So keep that in mind. The other thing you pointed to, Maya, is that your practice is really key. So keeping your practice strong, so caring for yourself, linking to yourself through yourself is the foundation of this work. And then when you do that, that also allows you to relate to others in a more functional way. But yes, the power of the group and supporting each other is also so key. The sangha, the satsanga, so yes, we need both to be nourished. So thank you for those words.
I just wanted to say the two words that come up when I wanted to summarize, like, and just keep it simple, is for this experience, is gratitude and humility. I just feel so humbled by the whole experience. There's so much more. It's like I just feel like it just, yeah. But it's a good feeling.
Yeah. And that's forever, right? Like,
Thank you, Meg.
that's forever. You're always a student first, right? And I hope I have modeled that for you. Always a student first. Okay, who would like to speak next? Jane?
Okay, so can you summarize? I'm just gonna talk, Maggie, but what am I supposed to be saying again? Just summarize that for me, because
Any closing words that
Okay.
you would like to offer to the group?
Okay, well, I guess first and foremost, thank you. Thank you to you, Maggie, and you, Tracy, and our other teachers, and Mr. Sridhar and Radha in India, and Viji for sharing your knowledge with us. It's been a journey, 3 years. Yeah, so I think I echo, some of the things that Maya said, that the more you know, the more you learn, the less you know. And so it's been a fun journey of learning and filling in the gaps. And I'm looking forward to, I have the Heart of Yoga, which I've glanced at, but I keep looking at, and then there's another page. I'm like, oh, this is a good one. So just having a bit more time to dive into some of those pieces, and I guess kind of picking and choosing, where I want to continue to learn and grow. So I'm excited about that. And yeah, it's been fun most days. And definitely India was, creating that opportunity for us, Maggie, to go to Chennai and to be with master teachers of Mr. Sridhar and Radha was really a life-changing experience. So thank you for making that available.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Yes, continuing education again through books. And also, I just wanted to let you know I have paid for Moodle for 1 more year. I'll be letting everyone know this. So for 1 more year, the resources will be available. It's not a cheap thing. It's like about $1,000 a year. So this is it. But I am giving another year so that people can download anything they want, and all previous grads actually will get access to the materials that you guys have, because it's every time I've taught the program, it's improved and the materials have improved, and it's kind of the latest things that I know and the other teachers know. So so if you want to do that, start doing that, downloading those materials. The videos have an eternal life. So, with the unlisted links, please don't share those with anyone else is all I ask, but those are kind of forever available, including all the teachings in India. So there's lots there to review. You never digest what you learn in one run. And you could just spend the rest of your life reviewing all of the program materials, but of course, usually, that feels a bit boring. So we usually don't do that, but that is an option, of course. All right. So, and yes, some of the books like The Heart of Yoga and Yoga for Wellness, Yoga for Transformation, those were my 3 Bibles in my early days of practicing in the early 2000s, besides what I learned from my teachers. Okay, so who would like to speak next? Thank you, Jane.
I can go. Yeah, so I would like to start with you, Maggie. Thank you so much for introducing me to this tradition, Krishnamacharya, and I am going to learn more in this tradition, maybe through other teachers or maybe my visits to India. That's my goal. And thank you, Tracy, for all your support throughout. And just to share that my master's program, I have still 1 year left where I have to specialize, and I'm going to specialize in research area in yoga. So that's my goal. And thank you, everyone, all of you, for your friendship, for your, Carly, Jessica, somehow I was just, kind of troubling you guys every here and there. So thank you for being there. Thank you, and wish you all of you, good luck. I'm sure this is, I think, the beginning of more challenges, more opportunities for all of us. So wishing you all luck. Thanks.
Nicely said, Swati. Thank you. Nothing to add. Who would like to speak next?
I can say something.
Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Maggie. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity. 3 years, long 3 years study. It's been really a fun spending time and then learning different aspects of yoga, something new, something let's say deeper and wider in the yoga philosophy. Especially I enjoyed the Mayas. Of course, thanks to Tracy, Neil, and the rest of the group that helped us also learn something new. Also great thanks to our group, the rest of the guys in the group, the girls. Actually, that it also was a nice experience meeting you all there and then spending a couple of years learning together. And great journey so far. And so I believe this is just the beginning. And this is where the yoga actually starts. And then it's learning from experiences will be the next part. And like one professor of mine told me, when you finish university, that was when I was studying for a vet, the only thing probably gonna remain is that you're gonna figure out in which books you can find the information you need. You're probably not gonna know, you're not gonna remember more than 10%. So probably it's like all mixed up in my head, at least, for sure. Like Jen said, more you learn, more you feel that you don't know actually. So again, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, Damien, that I always feel that education gives you a good foundation of knowledge, confidence, skill, And in this case, hopefully a lot of experience because of the practicum piece and also the capstone piece, a lot of like experience, getting your hands in there and doing it, not just going with, you know, the jnana, but actually the applied knowledge as well, the vivekam. But yes, I continue to, you know, look at my notes from my teachers. And I've shared with you in this program, I've basically shared with you everything I know, uh, based on sitting with my teachers one-on-one, taking handwritten notes for the first 5 years. And then the first group I trained in 2009, those became Word documents week by week. I taught it over 3 years and on the weekends. And every Saturday I'd run and I, you know, last minute Maggie, I would have just like managed to print the notes, the lecture notes for that class, having transferred it from handwritten. And then when the program got accredited, that first group said, hey, I think you should make PowerPoints. T help me get all of this onto PowerPoints. And then it's been revised how many times, you know, with that. So you have all of what I know in written form. And you have your own notes, of course. And then I hope what I've given you in written form eventually will become some sort of book, but it will never be all of that. So I really do encourage you to refer to that because that's direct knowledge. Like that's me sitting with my teachers and I reviewed all of those notes in the first 10 years of the program. I reviewed all of those notes with my teachers and were edited. Like we'd go to India and edit my notes. So just really continue to study that because those are the root teachings as captured. And then of course your own notes, your own experience, your own way of viewing things and all of that. So keep studying for the rest of your life. Who would like to speak next?
I can go next. Thank you so much to Maggie, Tracy, all the teachers. It's an incredible staff for all of this learning for this program. It's definitely met my expectations, what I was hoping to get out of this program, the wealth of knowledge from all the instructors and then combined with everyone who participates in the program has been really phenomenal. And it totally met what I was looking for. So thank you so much. Yeah, just echoing what everybody's been saying. It's almost like a 3-year program. It's like, okay, maybe now I kind of get it. Not even get it. It feels like it's at the beginning. It feels like I'm just starting. It feels like like so I don't really know anything, but in the best of ways. And I think I feel like it's more about I've learned how to be a student as opposed to just teaching. My intention when I started is so different than the outcome of where I am now. And it's been just a fun little ride. And lots of memories, lots of laughing, lots of learning. I feel like I don't even know, like I'm not even processing like that the fact that it's the end of the program even now. So it'll be nice to take some time off and then just kind of let it kind of sink in a little bit or figure out where to go from here. But yeah, I'm proud of myself, proud of all of us. 3 years is a huge commitment. It's been a lot of work, but a lot of like really satisfying work. And I think the best part is like learning more about myself in the process. So thank you to everybody for your patience and tolerance and kindness. And I'm very excited to keep crossing paths with everybody in the program because I'm sure we will at some point. Yeah, thanks everybody. Oh, wrong one.
Oh, thank you, Amber. Yeah, the peer learning is so important, and you're all teachers coming into this, so highlighting that. And yes, also thank you, all of you, for sticking it out. Because without students, there is no program, and I decided to change the last group from 2 years to 3 years for pedagogical reasons. And it was the right choice in that way, but practically speaking, it has made it more difficult for retention of students. So I really honor that you chose a 3-year program, not a 2-year, because that's the minimum standard with the IUIT is 2 years. And that you have stuck it out. And I know that Karen and Tiffany, and Camila, when they came last summer to assist, they all said, "Oh my God, I can't believe how much they know, like compared to us." And, Tiffany was just one group away from you guys, right? And she's like, "Oh, they're already like, basically a year ahead," is what she felt. And I've had that feeling too. So, that's due to all of you sticking to it and doing the work. And really, most of it ends up being you doing the work if you're going to learn anything. So thank you for all of you for doing that work and for sticking it out so that this program could continue for all of us. All right, who would like to speak next? Down to only a few.
Yeah, I could speak. So yeah, I learned so much from, first of all, these capstones that everyone has done, these presentations. So thank you for that. And yeah, not only that, but throughout the whole entire course, learned from other students. And I mean, of course, from the teachers all of the teachers who have so much knowledge. Yeah, and I forgot what I wanted to say. I wanted to say that it was mentioned about the practicum already, and that I so appreciate that about this program, about the practicum aspect and the capstone, because I do think that was where I learned so much, like going back, looking at notes, and then applying that to specific cases that I was actually working with. So I found that so helpful. And then, of course, the mentoring sessions with Maggie as well. That was super key, I found, in learning and progressing with my students. Yeah, so just basically wanted to emphasize like learning from everyone in this course, and thank you for that. And through the course itself, and then conversations I've had with several of you outside of the course as well. And it'll be interesting to see kind of what direction everyone goes in, and hopefully we can keep some contact and continue learning from each other as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Carly. Thank you for highlighting about the practicum. And just a reminder, you have to finish your practicums before you can graduate. So let me know when you've finished all your case documentation, uploads in Dropbox, and your Excel spreadsheets. You've filled them all out and you've got your hours done. Let me know, and then I do my review, and then you get a grade, and then yeah, and you'll be getting grades for the capstones soon. I decided not to release the grades for the first batch 2 weeks ago until this one was done, I don't know, it just felt more fair somehow. So I decided to do that. So those are coming in the next week, I imagine. Tracy will get it together. And the groups my experience with the group is one of the intentions of the program is to create lifelong friendships that support you in your practice. So yeah, that's what I've seen is the groups stay connected in some sense. So I will facilitate that as well, but you'll have your own ways of facilitating that. And lastly, as I mentioned by email, I officially owe each of you 2 sessions, 2 mentoring sessions. So don't worry about it in terms of your hours, because, I got sick, and, you've all had to deal with that. And I don't want you to suffer in terms of you're not getting your paperwork done on time because of me. But after you get your piece of paper, if you want to book me for a couple of sessions at any time, you know, just go for it. I can support you as you go out the door, because my experience was, and the way I designed the program with such an emphasis on practicum, my experience was when I finished my studies, I was all alone and I had no support. So you do have continued support, but I really do feel all of you have such a level of skill now that you're pretty much ready to fly without much support. But I am here, and Tracy is here, and others are here as needed. So thank you. Jessica, do you want to speak next?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I really, really enjoyed watching everybody's presentations. Obviously, as I had to turn my attention towards my master's to just balance everything over the last 3 years, I wasn't as connected to the capstone and the flow of, you know, how it was coming along and the progress of it. So seeing everybody's end projects was just so nice. I felt a lot of pride too, watching everyone present. I was like, wow, these are so good. These are so engaging. And it's so great to see the positive outcomes and that were measured. And yeah, so I'm excited for mine. I feel reinvigorated and remotivated. I'll be meeting with my participant for our intake in a couple weeks. So I'll be getting started, and I'll be presenting on, I think, December 14th. Maggie, I think, already sent an email about that. So if you're able to bear witness to my capstone and participate, I would love to have everybody there and to kind of have that be a bit of a reunion point as well. But yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody and to all the teachers. And it's been a crazy journey while trying to do it while I'm doing a master's at the same time and write a thesis. I don't think I'll ever do this again. I'll be glad when it's done. But I think the benefit of studying them simultaneously and constantly reinforcing through the 3 years, while it's been challenging, it's definitely been something that I wouldn't take for granted. So thank you for everyone for the space that you provided and for working with me in this hectic timeline and making allowances for me to keep going, even though I've had to juggle so much throughout the whole thing. So yeah, just thank you. And I hope to stay connected with everyone, and good luck in with all your future yoga therapy businesses, practices, whatever it is that you're doing. I can't wait to see what comes next. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jessica. And yeah, hopefully some people can come December 14th, 10 to 11 while Jessica's presenting. And I'm not sure what we're going to do with Maddie, whether it's going to be sooner than later. So I just have to figure that out with her, but she might present with Jessica, for example. It might be at that time. That's kind of what I'm thinking, because then it could be a bit of a reunion, which I think would be nice, and it would make Jessica feel more you know, like a regular student if it happened that way. So that's kind of what I'm thinking, but we'll see what Maddie wants. The capstones, these have been my best batch, as we say in India, by far. I'm going to be sending the videos to India. And I just want to say, in our tradition, the books that are written on yoga therapy are all case study books. They're all that way because this idea of protocol is so, like, you know, don't create protocol. It's not about that. It's individualized, you know. I mean, Schroeder's even not really keen on the group for that reason. But anyway, there's different ways of looking at everything. But so this model that you've learned through the capstone, just to tie up that piece, has given you skill to do a couple of things. So one, it's giving you, just in a general way, skill to think about your own practice in a researched way. When you're working with the students, like how to, you know, access papers and think about a lit review to support you in what you're doing with any particular student with a new condition, something you haven't learned much in the program. That's always going to happen, where there might not be a lot of information available. You can do your own, you have some of those skills developed. It also is going to help you with something that will likely happen during your career, is you will be asked to help with the development of a protocol for some research project. So So that's happened a couple of times in my career with yoga for cancer in both cases. And yeah, I've been part of a protocol development. I've also been on advisory boards, like at Langara. I helped them develop the trauma sensitive program and then the pain care program that they had for a while there. So I guess what I'm saying is these skills you've learned, you will use in other ways ongoing. And it could involve writing a book at some point where you write up case studies and use what you've learned from this course as a structure to present what you write in a book, right? So that could be a book for someone in the future, is doing various case studies and putting it together. Maybe it would be working with, your classmates. This also will give you skill to present at conferences for the IUIT. They have conferences, also to publish papers. If you're interested in that, you can do case study papers. So you've got a foundation of all of that now, I hope, from this project. So thank you. Thank you for your diligence. You all did a fabulous job. It was such a delight to listen. Tracy, would you like to add anything as a teacher? One of our, you basically are the main teacher besides me has been Tracy. So Tracy, go ahead.
I'm so sorry that I've been eating, but I hadn't eaten anything today. I just had to get something to eat because I went for a run before this. Sorry about that. It has been my pleasure. One of the things that has been a real privilege for me is I feel like I get to see both sides of the fence. And as you get older, your mind gets more open, I think, in a lot of ways. Maybe not, but for me, what I've found is, the ways that I believed were the right ways to approach healthcare and to approach, physiotherapy treatments. I'm a little more skeptical about some of those, and I'm a little more open-minded to the fact that we have to accept we don't know everything. We can't say everything is evidence informed, and we have to constantly approach things with this lens of curiosity. And that's what you guys all do. Like you're applying so much of your knowledge in a curious way. And it's not black and white, right? Like I just love the approach that you all have. And there is a bit of a magical quality to what you do. So yeah, I think it's been so good for me to spend time really witnessing how effective what you do is, but also that the process doesn't have to be quite so black and white as I tend to think it. Historically, I used to think it needed to be. So very impressed with all of you. You're also talented and bright, and I just feel like I want to send you clients. And so I will look forward to staying connected. And if any of you do decide that you want to publish something, I'd be happy to proofread something. And I don't know that I'd have anything useful to contribute, but I'd have a look at it if you'd like. Thank you. And thanks, Maggie. It's been fun.
And I just want to really thank all of the teachers. Neil Pearson has been very key. I will in the video, I'll actually make a separate little clip of this part of the video to send to the teachers to thank them. Neil, right from the beginning, from 2009, has been part of my faculty and has been a champion of me. I tend to hide in obscurity as a yogi, and he's connected me to people. He said, "Hey, Maggie, you should think about this," and has tried to get me, out of my little cave out into the world a bit more, which he's managed to do to some extent. And really introduced me to the idea of research and yoga science coming together with very classical practices. And Tracy, you have been my right, left hand so much since you joined the faculty. I've so enjoyed working with you, learning from you. You know, I mean, you became a student of mine, both in groups and privately to learn more. You even did teacher training to learn more. I mean, your curiosity, like with the level, you guys have no idea, but like Tracy is like a superpower out there in the world of allied health. Yeah, she's not telling you, but she is. And and there's just the humility that you have to have just opened yourself to something completely new, and it's been so enjoyable, and I can't wait to collaborate with you on all sorts of things when we retire, courses, papers. It's going to be super, super fun. So thank you so much. A shout out to Tian. Alan, again, such a pillar of support to me during hard times. Always, yeah, you know, Maggie, it's great what you're doing. Keep at it. And just she has such a great presence, and allowed all of you to deepen your practice experience through restorative yoga and weaving that into what we do, and you've all weave that into your practices so well as Neil's pain care work. And then finally to Nicole Marcia, who uh, stepped in to a role that she didn't have in the beginning of the program, taking over the helping skills, counseling skills part. She brought a real flavor of trauma-informed work to it, and I know that deeply affected all of you, and probably in your relationship to yourselves as well. And then, of course, last but not least, my teachers in India. I wish they could be with us today, but they are like my second parents. And this program wouldn't exist without them. Schroeder told me to do it when I was about to become a counselor. He told me to start this program in 2007. So that's how this happened. He said, start a program. And then I had a dream about it, and it told me to start it. And then that was it. I started it, and I didn't do the master's in counseling psych that I'd done the prep year for in 2005-06. So that was an interesting change of life. And the knowledge that I have given you comes directly from them. I cannot stress that enough. When my program was reviewed by the IYT, they said, basically, why don't you have more practice type books, like yoga therapy practice books? And I said, because it's all in my own notes. Like it's all coming from what I learned from my teachers. So my life goal has been to preserve their knowledge. And Schroeder has said to me that, you know, even if I can never write this book, because, you know, whatever life happens and I can't write it, he said, your students will continue teaching what you've given them and what they have given you directly and through me. So you are part of the lineage. You have a responsibility to share what you have been given. And I have a responsibility to be there for you as long as you want me to teach you. And that's what it is. So next steps are really up to you in terms of how you approach me. It's up to you how you want to continue that relationship, but I'm always here for you. That's Atta Yoga Nushasanam, first sutra. Wake up, we're here. Yoga, long tradition. Anushasanam, passed on one person to the next. And Atta, I commit to teaching you yoga in this lineage. I've made that commitment, and that's for life. And that's how it works in my world. And I mean that. So I'm here for you. All right. So having said that, shall we close with Asatoma Satgamaya as per what we learned in Chennai from our wonderful teachers? Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Schroeder. We're thinking of you and for all you've given to this program, to me, to all of us directly and indirectly. Om Asatoma Sadgamaya. Om Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya. Om Mrityoma Amritangamaya. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om. May we be led from what is untrue, impermanent, to what is true, eternal. May we be led from darkness, heaviness, to light and awareness. May we be led from limited understanding to absolute freedom. And may the city, the results of this practice of awareness, bring us peace, Shanti, in our thoughts, in our words, in our actions, in our bodies, in our speech, in our minds, and may the Shanti release us from all suffering caused by ourselves, others, and our environment. Namaste, namaskaram. Thank you so much. And all my very best to all of you, wonderful, wonderful students. I feel very honored to have had this experience with you, especially considering this last year. Thank you so much.